from whatever they're doing. But, I didn't want to compete with a war all of a sudden on Saturday night. Frank, it's not a war. It was just an exchange of bombs. Anyway, we're going to talk about that in the second half. There's new apparently there's a ceasefire already. What disrupts the ceasefire? I don't know. Anything at all? Maybe this is a lasting peace. What do you think? I have questions. I have rhetorical questions. I have actual questions. I want you guys to call in. That's what we'll do in the second half, leading up to our end and are leaping right into session 4 of Book Club for The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. It's going to be a good night. It is. So that's all I have for you up front. And what else is there? Anything else? Oh, okay. I have something for you. I told you about this last week when we were ending. I said I would have a little something for you to spice things up with the super chats tonight. So as you know, if you want to contribute to the conversation as well as support the show, sponsor us for the evening, then there is the super chats on YouTube, the Rumble Rants, the Gold Pills. There's also Quite Frankly Superchat.com, which is linked right to our Streamlabs, which is, one of the best ways to contribute to the show, where all of it goes to the show, outside of the taxes, outside of the IRS element to it. But here's what we got for tonight. I told you about this. Those 2 packets up front, that mystical fire packets. Here's what the winner tonight of the Super Chat raffle is going to get. Mystical fire packets that you throw into your wood fire pit, and all of this that sand in there just lights up different colors. Makes it look like you're about to, commune with some kind of a strange spirit. I know I just lost everybody on that one. Whatever. So for you fun people out there, we've got this mystical fire packets. Also, I have 2 packets of candy cigarettes. Now, I will tell you, I already tried these. Not these particular. I didn't chew them up and put them back into the box. But I had other parts of the other boxes of these. The bubble gum is rather hard. All right, just forthcoming. The bubble gum is rather hard, but still, you get to blow into the candy cigarette, and the powdered sugar comes out the other end, and that's really the only reason why we got these things. Okay, so you're gonna have the candy cigarettes, and you have the Pledge of Allegiance hat that's going in with it too. So I think it's pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. And that's it. So if you send a super chat on YouTube, on Rumble, Quite Frankly Superchat.com, or the Gold Pills, your name is going into the hat. Not literally, but then we're going to pick your name at the end of the tonight's show, and we will know who to send it all to. That's that. That's that. Oh, you know what? Here's what we'll do. The first place is going to be the hat, 1 mystical fire pouch, and 1 candy cigarette. The second place is going to be the candy cigarette, the other mystical fire, and that'll be it. It'll be a step down. I'll split it up, so because there's doubles there. So I'm thinking I like giving more. I feel like more winners is more fun. So there you have it. Let's get this one started. We'll be right back because Scott Schara is already in the waiting room.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up.
Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life.
It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back.
Does anybody else want to stay?
Let's raise and roll.
All right. So listen, as you all know, this was probably in 2022 that we first spoke with Scott Schara. I think it might have been 2022. He's a father from Wisconsin, and he's been advocating against hospital protocols following the tragic death of his daughter, Grace. At Ascension St. Elizabeth Hospital that was October of 2021. I got the dates right on that, I believe. But Scott has shared with this audience how Grace received a lot of medications, sedatives without consent, as well as being denied certain treatments in other instances. There's crazy details with DNRs and all that, and of course he was finally able to get his day in court, which we're going to talk about how that even came to be, because there's so many layers of protection that these hospitals and their staffs really have when it comes to administering care, and all the liability protection that they all have. And that's why I want to speak with him tonight, to welcome him back and really just see what this long journey has been like thus far, and the twists and turns, because of course it's not going to end here. Scott, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me okay, Frank?
I can hear you and see you. It's great to see you again. I hope all's been well. I wish it was under better circumstances, of course.
Well, it's always by God's providence. So every circumstance is fantastic, and including this one. And
that's another reason why I love talking to you, because we've naturally have had to go down some pretty dark paths and talk about where we are as a country, where you guys are as a family, and it's met with nothing but the utmost resolve and rooted in your faith, and it makes this a lot easier to deal with, because it's always solution based. And I'd love to just talk a little bit, because people have to go back and listen to your first appearance, and I'm sure along the way we will have some opportunities to get people up to speed here. But let's talk about this trial, how it came together, because just like I said as you were joining the Zoom call, there are so many layers of liability protection that's offered to doctors, nurses, hospitals at large. And then again, so many special protections that were granted during COVID alone. What was the plan to get around those protections in your lawsuit to actually get this thing to trial?
Well, that's a great question. If Grace would have died on any of the COVID emergency use authorization protocols, so remdesivir, tocilizumab, a ventilator, we would not have a trial, because then the PrEP Act immunity would have kicked in. Because Grace was euthanized with Precedex, lorazepam, and morphine, and had an illegal do not resuscitate put on her record without permission, that is why we had a trial. Otherwise, we would have never had a trial. Grace's death certificate had COVID-19 pneumonia as the cause of death listed. Of course, that's because that was incentivized too. But, praise God, we were able to bring this to jury trial. It's interesting, Frank, I did the math this morning because somebody asked me in an interview, how many of these cases with medical malpractice ever get to trial? And it is 0.003%.
Yeah.
And then once you get to trial, there's only a 3% chance of winning. So, I mean, this was truly against all odds. We would have never done it if God didn't open the door and call us to action relative to this. And so that's why I'm not disappointed that we lost. We did everything that we were supposed to do with this calling. And the fact is the entire jury trial was live streamed. The 3-week jury trial was live streamed courtesy of the New American, working with Children's Health Defense. And so this whole trial is now on YouTube for everybody to see. This is the first time that people were able to see live what is going on behind the curtain in the medical industrial establishment, literally in bed with the legal industrial establishment. So I am super pleased with that. Of course, personally, I wish we would have won, but as that's just because I'm human. God's ways are not our ways. And, to be blunt, what that means is that he sees more benefit from the loss than the win. And I can get there. I can get there actually pretty easily, because in the loss, you start seeing what is going on. And I'll be very blunt here, Frank. If you just think about the jury only deliberated 90 minutes in a case that was just 1 day short of 3 weeks. We had a better case, we had better witnesses, and better experts. The defense, through their experts, said that by being in a hospital, you are giving implied consent, and that the drugs that euthanized Grace were normal in the ICU, so no informed consent is necessary.
Incredible.
Doctors informing the family is not even necessary for the prior 2 overdoses. Grace had 2 overdoses before the overdose that killed her on October 13th. We were not informed of that, and they said that that wasn't necessary either. Finally, their experts stated that a doctor can unilaterally place a DNR on a patient without consent, without a witness, without a signature, and without a DNR bracelet. The jury decided in favor of the defense. I mean, how is that even possible? That tells you the blinders are on with our society. This decision should scare anyone with ears to hear. We only had 1 juror in our favor, which is 8%. 1 in 12 is 8%, which I think is representative of the population and how programmed they are to trust the white coat. It's hard to grasp in that light, especially with, these claims, no informed consent. Unilateral DNR, and the jury agreed with that. I mean, they didn't agree with us. They agreed
nuts.
with the defense.
That's absolutely insane. That's absolutely insane. It's breathtaking to think that those claims were made in a courtroom before a jury, and
right.
only 1 of 12 was able to see how horrendous that is. I mean, at that point, the trial. I mean, it always was bigger than Grace. But at that point, everybody in that courtroom, especially those people on the jury, should put themselves in Grace's position, or any of the people in their families in Grace's position, and say that they don't have to talk to us about a do not resuscitate order. That you got to be kidding me. I mean, the fact that it's on the record is I guess a small victory in itself, but it's a horrifying victory.
Yeah, I agree. Praise God, it's on the record. That's what I don't, people cannot connect unless it happens to them, I think is part of the problem with all of us. I mean, we tend to not do anything until it happens to us, but, it doesn't take too much to think ahead that every single person on that jury and every single person listening to the case is either going to be disabled or elderly someday, which means that means you're going to end up in a hospital, and these situations are going to happen to you. That's the reality. And we are in a country that is hooked on big pharma, and big pharma has bought into the ration care model. We have a belief that once we're 65, we get free healthcare. Well, free healthcare is a ration care model. They have convinced our society to believe in collectivism. So once somebody is a non-contributing member of society, they get into the ration care model trap, and they don't even realize it. I mean, it has been so subtle over time, and the trap of free medical care is a true trap. They don't realize that the excuse that our Congress is using is that we've got to balance the budget, which is another lie because we have a fiat currency, but we've got to balance the budget. There's 135 million Americans on Medicare and Medicaid. The cost is $5 trillion a year, over 50% of the annual federal budget. So we've got to do something. What they've decided to do is ration care, which means hastening death, which means they're murdering people before their time. And that's what is going on. And we showed the world that is going on behind the curtain for anybody with ears to hear, to be able to do something to protect themselves.
Scott, before we move on just a little bit further, I want to get some details out of this. Is there any way that you can put your microphone up a little bit?
Yes. Yep. I'll turn it up right now. I'll get a little closer too. How is that, Frank?
Perfect. Thank you so much. I think that's going to be great there. Now, okay. So now during the trial, I was reading that the defense, because I didn't know if it was actually streamed. I was getting your email updates, and I was getting anything that was being published, but I didn't see any video. So the defense claimed that medications given to Grace were standard ICU protocols, and that included a ventilator, which you opposed, and they were claiming that this was her only chance of survival. So how were you able to directly to respond to those claims in particular?
Well, we were able to get in. So with the ICU meds, this was a huge situation because we were able to get into the trial as evidence, the Precedex package insert. And this shows you the blinders. So the Precedex package insert lists the adverse reactions or side effects, you could say, for Precedex. So just process, Frank, anybody listening, if you gave an aspirin to your child and an aspirin has side effects and the child had a reaction to the aspirin, would you give the aspirin to the child a second time? If you did, you're a fool. But if they had a second reaction, would you do it a third time? If you did it a third time, you're a murderer. Well, this is what they did to Grace. She had a reaction to Precedex day 1. And then they gave it to her again day 2, October 8th. And then they overdosed her again a third time, October 13th. And the side effects of Precedex that are in Grace's records are respiratory depression, hypoxia, agitation, acidosis, hypotension, fever, blood pressure fluctuation, anxiety, delirium, sepsis, acute respiratory distress syndrome, and cardiac arrest. These are side effects that are on the Precedex package insert. Grace had all of those, but they ignored them because she's in the ICU, and that's normal in an ICU. You got to be kidding me. And then relative to the ventilator, how the ventilator situation was framed to Cindy, my wife and I, was that we would like a pre-authorization for a ventilator just in case. These type of things tend to happen in the middle of the night when we can't get a hold of the family. And when I was on the stand, I said, that is like asking me for a pre-authorization for a leg amputation when I come in for an ankle sprain. It doesn't make any sense. Why would I give a pre-authorization for a ventilator when it's not needed? They never asked us or told us, hey, we need to put Grace on a ventilator to save her life. And yet they use that as the excuse that I'm the bad guy. In fact, I'll just comment on that further just in a minute, but I'm the bad guy because I wouldn't give a pre-authorization. Well, tell me my daughter's going to die unless she's going to be on a ventilator. What I explained on the stand, Frank, was that it could have been so simple. The doctor would have just said to me, if he would have just said to me, hey, just so you know, because you're choosing to not give us a pre-authorization for a ventilator, that's called DNI, do not intubate. And once we label somebody DNI in the records, that's a DNR to us. So I'm going to enter a DNR order on Grace's chart. If he would have just said that, Grace would be alive today, but he didn't. He hid it all and put this illegal do not resuscitate order on Grace's chart without our consent. And it's so frustrating. I lost my best buddy, but she gave her life so that other people would have a chance to wake up.
Yeah, it's been one of those haunting stories that we've had to revisit on this show from time to time, especially as you've really rooted yourself in the media and bringing attention to what's going on. Because again, when you talk about the intubation, you say, well, why would I give you a pre-authorization if I have an ankle sprain to cut off my leg or something? But right. A lot of people at this point might even lapse in their memory that there were people walking under their own power into hospitals because they just felt like crap, and they were told they have COVID, and then they were told that they were going to be intubated, and therefore coma was going to be induced. So people who just a few minutes ago who had enough strength to walk into the hospital under their own power, maybe even drive themselves to the hospital, were being put under so they can be intubated because those were the protocols that were being put forth. But of course that is part of the rub here. The remdesivir and the intubation, the ventilation, that would be covered and protected under the PrEP Act because that was a protocol that was given for emergency situations. What you were able to get the trial with was under, you actually claim battery because this was, the cocktail of drugs that they were using was not part of the COVID protocols, right?
That's exactly right. And so we had 5 claims. We had wrongful death, medical malpractice, lack of informed consent, medical battery, and then a declaratory judgment for the illegal DNR. The judge threw out the battery on the Tuesday before the case went to the jury. And, we argued the battery all the way throughout. And the surprising thing on Tuesday, there's 2 things that are required for a battery claim. One is that you don't want the treatment. And then second of all, you didn't consent to it. And so, of course, we didn't want the treatment because we had no knowledge of the treatment. But the judge said that we consented to it because there's implied consent just by being in a hospital. And what we did, knowing the judge was leaning that way, he told us earlier he's leaning that way, when I had my rebuttal opportunity on the stand, we brought in one of the records that is in the medical records that was supposedly agreed to by Grace. So think about Grace is my 19-year-old daughter with Down syndrome. She has the equivalent of she acts like a 12-year-old. And they claimed on the general consent form going into the hospital that Grace gave oral approval for her hospital stay. And they wrote on the general consent form, orally approved by Grace. Well, think through that. I'm in the room with her, Frank. Okay, so why would they get oral approval from Grace when I'm right there? I mean, it's a complete lie. It was a sham. And we showed that to the jury and the judge, but the judge still said we had implied consent, and that's why he threw out the battery claim. So that claim did not go to the jury. The other 4 claims did.
And just to be clear, with the do not resuscitate order in particular, the hospital, what they presented as evidence of consent as this as well was implied, because they didn't have a signature, they didn't have oral consent on that. This is they just leaned heavily on the implied consent with the DNR, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
All implied. I mean, it's just hard to even grasp this concept, but this is why I'm speaking out about it. And I want people to know that when you go into a hospital, you are signing your rights away. And if you do that, that's your business. I mean, I can't stop anybody from doing that, but I'm just warning you that that is in fact what is happening. And, so how can you protect yourself? Well, you absolutely have to have an advocate with you. What I know about advocacy today, if I would have known that when Grace was in the hospital, Grace would be alive today, because an advocate's responsibility is to protect the patient. If they start doing this lack of informed consent situation, you got to get the patient out of there. You need to have online access to your chart 24/7, and you need to be reviewing it regularly so that you can see what they're entering in the chart in real time. And that's how you protect yourself in the situation you need to get into a hospital. But I would tell you, even bigger picture, why did I take Grace to the hospital? Grace was not sick. She had symptoms of COVID. Her oxygen level had dropped to 88%, but I was not awake. I had bought into the COVID narrative, and the COVID narrative was designed to create fear. And so the fact is, when I shine the light on myself, I did not rely on God. I trusted the system, and the system failed me, and it was designed to fail me. And that's why I'm speaking out now, so nobody has a situation happen like what's happened to me and they lose their best buddy.
There is there's an element to your story I'm trying to remember now, so I'm just going to ask you then, because it was in your first appearance. You spent a little bit of time. I know that there was bounce backs in between, like you said, overdoses or of these cocktails, these sedatives that they were giving her. But I feel like there was an element of your story that had something to do with the denial of alternative therapies that you had been able to bring into the hospital. Is that, am I remembering correctly? Or is that, am I just making that up?
Well, interestingly, they told me, well, I lost you there for a second, Frank.
Yeah.
You're wondering about alternative therapies. Well, we started Grace on alternative therapies at home before we brought her in. When we brought her in, they told us that none of those, they will not use any of the alternative therapies, ivermectin, vitamins. They would not even, interestingly, they would not even use budesonide as a treatment through a nebulizer. And they said that would aerosol the virus. I mean, just process that. Even in the trial, it came up that Grace was in what's called a negative pressure room. So there was none of this supposed virus that was even escaping the room because of the negative pressure room. So that was ridiculous. You know, what God did in our case is I ended up in a different hospital 3 days after Grace died. And I think he put me there very specifically so that I could talk about Grace's stay with a different perspective. In Grace's stay, they completely took over. In my hospital stay, the first thing they did was ask, what would I like to have happen? I went into the hospital with my wife driving me there. I couldn't even, I was having trouble breathing. You know, for a man to go into a hospital is the last resort, right? Especially 3 days after my daughter was just killed. So I go to the hospital. I thought I had a 50-50 chance that night. And they asked me, what would you like to have happen? I said, I just want to be on a regular cannula and let me sleep. I don't want anybody to come in and check on me unless I buzz you. So I did buzz them in the middle of the night. I had to go to the bathroom, came back. My oxygen had dropped to 72%. I asked them to turn the oxygen up for a little bit to 6 liters. They did. And then the next morning, the nurse came in, Frank, and I made it. I was alive. And she came in with a pill cup. I said, well, what do you have in there? And she said, I have a multivitamin, a probiotic, vitamin E, vitamin D, and fish oil. And I said to her, you got to be shitting me. You guys don't believe in that stuff. And she said, we do here. And then they got me on a budesonide treatment. It was complete. It was 180-degree opposite. And they had me turned around in 24 hours. So that told me that there's something else going on. And, now I know what else is going on because I become a full-time researcher and advocate as a result of all the research that I've been doing since Grace's death.
Okay. Well, then, I want to ask you about your advice to people, especially going out there into the world, because there's been a lot of organizations that have tried to change, that have tried to go in and see where alternative therapy or off-label therapies, therapeutic uses, and all that stuff can take people. There are a lot of doctors and healthcare practitioners who have started independent clinics, and there has been a real grassroots response to the horror show that we watched a few years ago to try to create some more effective options for people to be cared, even in chronic situations and acute situations. But let's just talk about the hospital staff for a second. Was there any cooperation over the course of this trial, or maybe over the course of your research, from employees at especially Ascension Hospital, but I guess anywhere locally, even former employees who ever wanted to speak about whether or not there were euthanasia-like practices that actually might be commonplace? What kind of testimony have you gotten from people, even just anonymously?
Outstanding question. Yes, several people in the Ascension system reached out to me, not locally. The one locally that happened was the night that Grace died. One of the nurses walked Cindy out to the car. Unfortunately, we don't know what her name was, and said to her, Mrs. Schara, me and several of the nurses don't think Grace should have died today. That was a wake-up call for us. But then as I started speaking out, Ascension employees, Ascension's huge. They're the largest Catholic hospital system in the country. And one of the Ascension pharmacists reached out to me, and that's the day I realized Grace was murdered. She called me after she saw our billboard campaign on the social media, and she told me that what happens is that these meds are euthanasia meds, and they try to get her to sign off on these meds as a pharmacist because the process goes through pharmacy. The doctor orders the meds. The pharmacist has to sign off on the order before the nurse can deliver the meds to kill you. And she said, how I deal with it is, she said, I will not sign those orders because I know it's going to kill the patient. So they wait until my shift is over and they get the next pharmacist who doesn't have the same conscience as I do to sign those orders. That's how they pull it off. That's the day I realized Grace was murdered. So, several people have come forward, that's been a gift. And several of them have also become outspoken because they decided to not side with their paycheck. There's also been ones that have locally have come forward, but they choose to not be outspoken. I'll give you an example in that realm. We had a nurse from the competing hospital in Appleton Medical Center. She reached out to me. Originally, I did an article in Wisconsin Christian News, and she called the reporter and told her that I'm lying, that doctors don't put illegal do not resuscitate orders on patients. Well, then she was the medical advocate and power of attorney for her dad. She was reviewing his chart and found an illegal do not resuscitate order on it. So she called the reporter back and said, he's not lying. It happened to my dad. So I got on the phone with her and I asked her, will you come on media with me and explain it? I'm just a dad. You're a nurse. They're going to believe you way more than they're going to believe me. And she said, I can't do that. I'm only a year away from retirement, and that would jeopardize my retirement.
So
that's the opposite.
It's the opposite, but And I know you say, well, if you don't go all the way, how much credit can you really give somebody? But the fact that there was a denial, and then that must have been a hard pill to swallow. Yeah. To be able to look back and to see, and it's her own father, you said, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's that in itself might be. So yeah, she was 1 year away from retirement. Didn't want to foul all that up, but I mean, she swallowed a pretty jagged pill right there. Coming to grips with what she thought was not possible, and to be able to admit to it, and for her father to be a culprit is. I mean, you got to give her at least a half credit, right?
Well, I don't think there's half credit in God's economy.
I didn't know. I didn't think
you got to be all in. I don't think you can put your big toe in the water when you're talking about people's lives.
Exactly.
I mean, either blood is on your hands or it's not, and blood is on her hands for not coming forward.
What about families? We're just talking about people who were part of the hospital systems that were coming to you, and even as soon as walking you out to the car and saying, "I think your daughter should be alive." But after the last couple of years of the incredible work that you guys have done as a family, being in the public with your work and your research, and now, of course, in trial, very public trial. I mean, you got some really great attention paid to you just on the Rogan podcast,
right,
not too long ago. But what about families who have been in your situation? How many people have you been able to gauge just how commonplace this treatment was for others, where families have reached out to join the cause over the last few years? This happened to my daughter, my son, my husband, my wife. How has that been?
Yeah, so thousands have reached out, and just to zoom way out, during this supposed COVID era, which is 39 months long, this statistic really drove the research at the beginning. We had, of all 200 countries on the planet, the United States was number one with COVID hospital murders with 1.2 million. Number two was India at 533,000 with a population 4 times that of the United States. So you could, just by that statistic, you knew something nefarious happened during COVID, and our country led the charge. So that was like, wow, when I saw that. So then, drilling down to thousands of people have reached out, but more importantly, there's been many families who have reached out while their loved one was in the hospital. And Cindy and I saved a couple. The most recent one, my wife ended up became a co-guardian for this lady because she became a ward of the state. She was put on a ventilator. The family lived out of town, and she ended up in the same hospital that Grace was in. And because they were familiar with our story, they reached out to us to see, would you go visit her? And my wife ended up taking over co-guardianship for this lady. But here's the interesting sidebar of that story, Frank. This was last August. And so last August, we go into St. Elizabeth's Hospital where Grace was murdered, and to go visit this lady. She ended up being on the same floor. Grace was in room 2029. This lady was in room 2016. So she's on the same floor that Grace was killed at. So it's a little eerie, going in there. We got into her room. She's on a ventilator, so she can't talk. But we introduced ourselves to her. She was cognizant, and we started showing her. My wife was showing her pictures on her phone and the connection that we had with her family. We were in her room about 10 minutes, and 2 armed guards showed up and said, "You're not welcome in this hospital," and escorted us out.
Well, you're a marked man over there at this point.
Exactly.
And whatever, I'd take that. That's a badge of honor at this point. And I'm sure that, I don't know, it's just some of those things that we got to be proud of. If those situations they're not embarrassing at all. I think it only speaks to your integrity. And, let's talk a little bit about how you have changed. You're talking about these protocols, these self-imposed protocols on what to happen in a medical emergency. You said, well, it takes, for a man to go to a hospital, it takes a lot. You have to really feel like you're in trouble here to take that leap. I think a lot of people still have not really gotten over the kind of the shock and the fear of, oh man, the last thing I want to do is have to walk into this building. It used to be a comfort. I always talk about this. It used to be a real comfort living in this country, knowing if worse came to worse, if it was a traumatic, if I fell down a flight of steps, or if I, something was just not right, and to know that we had the best of the best hospitals in the United States that you can just put your trust in. That used to be one of those, you don't want to use it, but you're happy it's there kind of things. Now it's everybody's trying to get as healthy as quick as possible because they never want to have to go if they don't. But we know that sometimes it's a standard. As you said, you get older, there's going to be times you're just going to need to get some attention. And also, it's not right to say that everybody that works inside of a hospital is trying to kill you. It is. So where do you go now if you're going to tell anybody in the years to come? What would you say the best pieces of advice are if you have to go, if you have assessed that you're dealing with a health situation you just can't treat at home and you need to go to the hospital? What are like the biggest tenets of doing it safely and also keeping your cool along the way?
So I have several things. I'm just ramble through them. The first thing I would encourage everybody to do is drop your medical insurance, because the medical insurance will drive the coding that the hospital, the doctors, that's the only way they can get paid. And so I would drop your medical insurance. So then what happens once you drop your medical insurance, your critical thinking comes back to life, because you're not going to rely on, your only question with medical insurance is, does my insurance pay for it? When you don't have the insurance, you start asking more questions, and questions those are your safety net to protect yourself. That's why God gave us that ability to be childlike, to keep asking why over and over till you get the answer. Because that's how you protect yourself. Second of all, I would tell everybody listening to have a relationship with a medical provider, whether it is conventional medicine, naturopath, chiropractic, but medical providers who are not in the system. And there's a bright light test. If they accept Medicare and Medicaid, run, because they're bought by the system. Even the ones that are supposedly good that you said, I get that. They're not just necessarily trying to kill you, but they've been programmed, and they've been programmed by that system. And so they are at least tacitly agreeing with Medicare and Medicaid and the protocols that ration care if they accept Medicare and Medicaid. So I would encourage everybody to not go to any medical provider that accepts Medicare or Medicaid. Okay, so now you're in a hospital situation. They're actually, in our area, a hospital opened up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, that is a cash pay hospital. So, I don't know how common that is yet, Frank, but assuming you need to go into a regular hospital for some type of emergency, of course, you've got to have your paperwork in order. You need your medical directives document. I have a sample document that we created on ouramazinggrace.net. You need your power of attorney document. In your power of attorney, it would presumably be your medical advocate. And that person should be somebody who's awake. It's critical that they have the right personality and they're awake, and they're going to be kind but firm with the medical staff. Again, I think I said earlier that in Grace's case, if I knew what advocacy means back then, Grace would be alive today. Because I would have demanded things that I did not demand. You might remember I was actually taken out by an armed guard for asking too many questions. Well, we would have never got to that point, because as soon as the first overdose event happened, I would have got Grace out of the hospital. Let's go to a different facility. I'm not going to keep you in a facility where they're going to overdose you. I mean, that's ridiculous. And, so those are the type of things that, it's a person's life. We have been blinded by this idea that the medical professionals take the Hippocratic Oath. And so the Hippocratic Oath means first do no harm. Well, that's the lie that's permeated our society. The Hippocratic Oath, if you read it, is an oath to satanic gods. It's not an oath to do no harm. And so that's why we're in the trouble that we're in. So the single most important thing that anybody could do is change your belief. Because once you change your belief, if you believe a hospital is a safe zone, you will never be prepared. If you believe it's a place that you need to be on guard to protect your life, you will be prepared. And so then I don't need to give you a laundry list of things. You'll be self-prepared by changing your belief.
That's a good way of putting it. Here's a question from the audience. Rev says, Frank, can you please ask Scott about the timeline of this nurse who didn't come forward? It's 2025 now. Grace was murdered in 2021. That's near 3 years or so elapsed. If her retirement has come and gone, would Scott be able to reach out to this woman and ask her to come forward now?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have not reached out to her, but yes, I mean, I presume that if she was telling me the truth back then, that she would come forward now. You can imagine how that conversation ended. It didn't end. I wasn't rude to her, but I just said, if you're not willing to do this, what are you saying? You're saying that your paycheck is more important than telling the truth. And anybody that is impacted by this, their blood is on your hands. So my suspicion would be that she doesn't look at me as a friend, because once you tell the truth to people, they generally end the friendship, other than the people who are your real friends.
Yes. The horse welfare wanted to thank you for your strength and courage. Also, asked how we can facilitate change, but I think that you went into the best ways, changing your mindset, walking into those buildings and learning a little bit about what proper medical advocacy is for your family, and also making sure you have an advocate for yourself. I would have to imagine that's the summary of what you would say people should start with right now.
Well, and I'll just give you another example. So with this lady that my wife is the guardian for, she ended up at Mayo Clinic in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and actually Mayo Hospital, not Mayo Clinic, but Mayo Hospital in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Well, they came in, so I went to visit this lady with my wife, and they came in and said, well, there's no visitation between 2 and 4. And I said, where is that coming from? Well, that's just our policy. I said, well, your policy does not apply to advocacy. This lady has the right to an advocate. Well, that's our policy. I said, do you want me to show you the law? Because I will, because you're wrong. A policy does not override an advocate's right, or the right to an advocate. And they backed down once I challenged them. And so my wife was able to stay there 24/7. So this idea of visitation policy, a patient has a right to an advocate 24/7. You do not have to follow the visitation policy as an advocate.
And that's all. That's all 50 states.
Statistics. Say that again.
That's all 50 states, or state by state?
That's all 50 states. Okay. Everybody has the right to an advocate. Period. And the advocate does not have to obey visitation hours.
Interesting. Okay, keep going.
Well, you got to push back. I mean, if you don't push back and you just, well, it's our policy. It's our policy. So what? I don't care what your policy is. I care about my rights as a human being. And a policy is not going to override my rights as a human being, but you've got to learn to push back. Most people are not, they're too polite to push back in those situations. And, the people will back down once you push back, and you've got that on your side, because it's 100% true. Think about just logically, how many people die when their visitor is in the room versus how many people die when there's no visitor in the room. Mm-hmm. It's obvious that, even in Grace's case, they told us with a ventilator, these type of things tend to happen in the middle of the night when we can't get a hold of the family. Well, no kidding. That's when these things happen in the middle of the night. Why? Because there's nobody watching and being an advocate for the patient. So, I mean, the patient needs an advocate 24/7 in the hospital, period. And that means go on rotation with somebody else so that the patient can have an advocate the entire time.
So what comes next, Scott? I mean, obviously, there's always a reason. I love having you on as a guest. We should definitely do this at least once or twice a year. I feel like we haven't spoken in about a year or so, but your work in public has taken on so many new roles, and it's become very, very needed testimony and work. Now that this trial has concluded, in that respect, what has that door been sealed shut, or is there an end? Because the path you took was an end around what was almost an impenetrable shield of liability protection that we talked about in the opening of our conversation tonight. But is the work and the precedent you laid down in the courtroom over the last couple of weeks, is there something for another family somewhere to be able to take the case and perfect it, or has this really seen the last gasp in the courtroom as far as chances for some sort of legal action or a change or any kind of retribution? What?
It's a great question. I mean, I don't see us appealing unless God shows me that that's the path. I mean, he got us in this lawsuit. I believe the purpose was to create a platform to share the message that he gave me in July of 22, which I'll explain in a minute. You know, the path that we set for other families certainly is there. I would tell anybody to not do a lawsuit unless you're called to do it, because it is intense. It will physically drain you, break you, all those things. I mean, I have aged in the last 2.5 years since we filed the lawsuit. I probably aged 15 years. It was intense. I'm glad we did it. It created a platform for a much bigger message, and that's what I see as next, the bigger message. So what happened in July of 22, Frank, is that God showed me to not use Grace's story to expose evil. And I didn't know what he meant at that time, but later on, when I looked at Ephesians 5:11, it says, have nothing to do with the fruitful deeds of darkness, but rather expose them. So if you look at your own Bible, you'll see that. And yet the Bible is not true. And what I mean by that is Satan has changed that word, the word expose, and he did it on purpose. The NIV Bible, which has 450 million copies in America, is not the original Bible. And if you go back to the 1500s with the Tyndale Bible and the Geneva Bible, you'll see the word is rebuke, not expose. And God warned us in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3, to not fall for safety and security. And Satan knows this. Satan always uses, so look at 9/11. You have the fear of, the psyop of 9/11 was accomplished by fear and then safety and security, the Patriot Act. COVID was the same, the COVID psyop the same way. We have this pandemic. What's the solution? The bioweapon jab. Okay, so we always fall for Satan's trap of security and comfort. Well, on a macro level, Satan has to have the evil exposed to resurrect himself as the angel of light and seal the fate for anybody who doesn't believe in our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. And that's the message I've been given, and that's the message I will keep sharing. I've been researching that spiritual agenda now for over 2 years. I've been recording podcasts on it, and I'll be getting back to my research after I get done with the barrage of interviews where people want to talk about the trial. I
can imagine. I mean, this is all wrapped up for you on Friday, and I knew that we would be one of the first. But yeah. I'm looking forward to everything else you're going to be doing. I know that you had your own show too. Just so people know, because I've had it in the description of the episode, but also on the screen. OurAmazingGrace.net, is that where people can find all of your ongoing media engagements and all of your own episodes that you put out?
Yeah, everything is linked there. So my Rumble channel, which is Deprogramming with Grace's dad, is linked there. Virtually everything about what we're doing is linked there. The take-home message, if people want to follow the work, is on the upper right-hand corner of the main website, OurAmazingGrace.net. You'll see a note that says subscribe to our newsletter, and that's my Substack. And I'll be getting back to writing Substacks here after I get done with these couple weeks of interviews that are scheduled.
Well, thank you, Scott. And send all of our love, our collective love from the audience to your family. And anytime you need anything, you want to come on and talk, or if there's any new initiatives or whatever that I could be of assistance with you, just please let us know. You're a fan favorite.
Well, Frank, you are you're one of my favorites. Your attitude, the way you ask questions, it's wonderful. So I'd love to come on anytime. God bless you.
Same to you. Thanks again for everything. Again, I would offer apologies, but there's no need No need for that. Obviously, this is it's already bursting and blooming into something new. And thank you again for your demeanor through all this. It's been an inspiration in itself. So have a great night and all the best to you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Frank. Bye.
Be well. All right, everybody. There goes Scott Schara. And I can't wait to take your calls and everything else. The lines will be open in the second half. This is a good time for me to go into a little bit of an intermission. And when we come back, I'll be going through your super chats and see who is in the running for the hat and the fire chemical, the chemical fire solution. Oh, I don't know. But your calls, and then Iran. I don't know. And your calls. You know, you got to play Moonlight Serenade in the month of June, and we're already a month away from July. You talk about so much. Yeah, on Saturday night, I was joined by my father and my cousin Jeff, and my mother was on the couch, and Anthony, my brother, was over here, and we were watching a lot of clips from the summer of 1993, which I thought was the peak of it all. And I guess it was just only because I was about 8 years old, so I was just really loving everything. And as a kid, your cousins and all that. But last night we skimmed through 5.5 hours of footage from 1986. From January, we only got as far as Labor Day. How incredible! Just talk about family and good times and things that completely disconnected from any overarching fear campaigns. I don't know. Everything was decentralized. Everybody's lives were being lived in much smaller little pockets, but also plugged into networks of neighborhood networks. Nothing else. Very little digital traps laid for us. Anyway, let's get to some super chats, shall we? Gino on quitefranklysuperchat.com says, I want everyone to know Francis is a man of the people. Oh, thank you. Despite his superstar status. Despite his superstar status, he took the time to send a nice message about my little video I made for my son. You're the man, Francis. Great show as always. Oh, yes. Yes, Gino's son is about to turn 1. And he sent a little snippet of the announcement of the baby on this show. It was me and Matt talking about it probably a year or so ago. And then, just a nice montage of all the things that they've been doing over the last year, the first year of life. And I told him, Gino, looks like you're on the right path there, man. Just soak it all up. Be there for every minute, and you'll be head and shoulders above the rest. So good for you, Gino. Horse welfare. Thank you again for that. Shotzi says, prayers for the Schara family. So scary that it could happen to any of us. We need huge changes in our healthcare system. Well, we need huge changes in our mindset, and everything else will coalesce around that for sure. But yeah, one begets the other. Let's see. Road Trip says Frank needs subscribers so that he isn't sending out used candy cigarettes. Dig deep. What the hell? They're not used. In fact, you know what it was? I had a really wonderful member of this audience who said, hey, I know where those candy cigarettes are sold, and sent me a whole, box. And I was like, oh, awesome. So the box showed up one day. I said, so I broke open the box, and all the little tiny packs of bubblegum cigarettes were in there. So I opened one up, I did the little sugar puff. There's about 2 nice puffs in there. Just the sugar comes out like, yeah, I feel as cool as I did when I was 9. And then I opened it up and I had the gum and I almost broke a molar. And, it's just the way it is. It's just the way. You guys remember, do they still put sticks of bubble gum inside of baseball card packs? Hope not. That was like eating glass. Hey, kids, you want to know what it was like getting a stick of bubble gum out of a Topps baseball card pack back in the day? Go outside and pop a piece of glass into your mouth. That's what it was. So it's not used G's. Anyway, but yeah, subscribe. By all means, subscribe, become a sponsor of the show, do all that stuff so I can stop selling used bubble gum. All right, here we go. Over to Rumble, and you know what? The lines are open. 914. You can call in for a couple of minutes. It's just about 8 o'clock. Call in for a couple of minutes on anything you want, and then we'll get right into the Iran stuff. Because the situation is changing by the moment. Redneck Lady says, I love you, Frank. Been watching for 6 years. You make digesting our world today easier to swallow. Thank you for your service to us. Well, I appreciate that very much. I'm glad that you're enjoying it in that way. It makes me feel good. Natwall 3330 says, I'm a little behind on watching, but I love when you have Jay Gulanello on. I hate this show. Yeah, I love when Jay's on too. Because you know what? We're at the point now where when Jay comes, unless there's something in particular I want to, usually we get around to something that is science. Something that's more nutrition science, which is always very interesting because all the biggest issues, think about how many unknowns there really are when it comes to the human body. We're talking about it tonight. We're talking about treatment. We're talking about advocacy. We're talking about the system and how it works. Jay's a guy that I can talk to about the inside of that as well as the chemical end of it too. And but whereas there are so many deep dives that I want to do on topics and supplements and how the body reacts in certain situations, I think we're at a spot now where we can just talk about anything that's going on, and it's gonna rock and roll. It's gonna rock. It really is. Jay Semo says, great show, great guest. We watched Scott's podcast. God bless him. Yes, and I'm sure he'll be able to get back around to doing most of that again, because I can see how this could have been very time consuming, the trial. Let me see here. M. Nitso, Minnesota girl. Everybody with their strange spellings. Minnesota girl sent a cookie over on Pilled. How nice. 561, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, you don't build nuclear facilities underneath a mountain just to power your toaster.
Nuclear facilities under the mountain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you don't do that when you want to just power, your refrigerator or something.
Okay.
And they even came out the next day and said, yeah, we're going to build more weapons. It's like, oh, thank you for just confirming what we.
You're talking about the government in Iran. They essentially said, hey, we're building weapons, and now we're just going to double down and build more of them.
Yeah, they basically just confirmed what we already knew.
Where I didn't.
You didn't see that?
No, I didn't see that about Iran talking so explicitly about their. I mean, I'll go check it out right now. Hold on. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, it was here. Hold on, I'll bring it to you. It was where is he?
He'll continue to do so. Hold on.
Here, right here. Hold on. Yeah, Dmitry Medvedev.
Oh, Medvedev. He's Russian.
The enrichment of nuclear weapons. Yeah. The enrichment of nuclear material, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue. So, yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't build a nuclear facility underneath a mountain to power your your dishwasher.
Yeah, but wait, is Medvedev talking about nuclear development, nuclear technologies being developed in Russia or in Iran?
No, he's straight up saying they're going to supply now more capability to them.
To Iran? He said that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Hold on.
That's this is Fox News. He straight up said, it's like, hello.
Hold on. About.
Thank you for confirming that.
Okay. Material to Iran. Hold on one second. I just want to get it up. Let's see here. Dmitry Medvedev, former Russian president and deputy chairman of Russia's Security Council, made controversial statements on June 22nd, 2025, following U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. In a Telegram post, he claimed that a, quote, number of countries are ready to directly supply Iran with their own nuclear warheads and that enrichment of nuclear material, and now we can say it outright, the future production of nuclear weapons will continue. He suggested that U.S. strikes failed to disrupt Iran's nuclear program and might accelerate its ambition. Well, you know, that actually is pretty clear to me, because we were told that there was high precision strikes that we got over the weekend, and what was supposed to be World War III was the war that never was. And then I hear that Israel has to go drop bombs in the same exact place because apparently.
Well, it's what Israel did was they cut off. Is what I understand is they cut off the access points, so Iran cannot do damage assessment or even consider repairing. Israel went in after we went in and just kind of cut off their access.
Okay, so you see this as a net positive, and it was long overdue military necessity.
You know, I don't think it's good for anything other than just stopping where. Look, who's to say they didn't have stuff already? I mean, they're not telling us. They're not going to tell us. They probably had that shit already ready to go. Why do you think we did what we did? You know what I mean? It's like, I
don't know. And thank you for the call. Look, I want to get more people in on this. I want to get more people in on this because it's a good.
I just want to bring it to your attention.
No, I appreciate it.
Like Trump says, thank you for your attention to this matter.
I know. Yeah, that make Iran great again. I saw that MIGA. I think that the last time. Who knows what's unaccounted for? But what is there? 13,000 nuclear warheads in the world. Israel has nearly 100 of its own. So I never understood just the issue here with one Persian weapon, if that is the case, because it's been nothing but decades of saying that they were months away from actualizing something. That's just the thing I often ponder with this. Here, this was just shortly before we went on live. I'll take a couple more calls from people. They're starting to really pour in right now. But here's from Donald Trump. Here's from the president just a little bit before we went live. Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their final missions. For 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended. Oh, so it was a war. I didn't hear anybody declare it. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire. Oh, so Iran has to stop first, even though Israel started it. So many things are just so weird. And, you know, a lot of people are asking questions, and I think I find it very interesting. How people who otherwise would have no questions about how things are going down and what order in which they're going down are being told to shut up, are being called all types of interesting things. Let's see here. And upon the 24th hour, the official end to the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. It's been branded, at least by Trump, as the 12-day war, during which ceasefire the other side will remain peaceful and respectful. During each ceasefire, the other side will remain peaceful and respectful, on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries, Israel and Iran, on having the stamina, the courage, and intelligence to end what should be called the 12-day war. This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will. God bless Israel. God bless Iran. God bless the Middle East. God bless the United States of America. God bless the world. Donald Trump, President of the United States of America. This feels like such a Vince McMahon production, I can't tell you. This feels like WWE, like Attitude Era. I don't even know what to say about this. Obviously, don't want war. So if this is the case, nice. Hopefully nothing disturbs the ceasefire. But again, then there's this. This is from Colin Rugg not too long ago. What was it, last night, today? 1:31 p.m. today. Iran coordinated their attack on the U.S. airbase in Qatar, with Qatari officials symbolically striking the U.S. They want to symbolically strike the U.S. again. Didn't they do this after Soleimani was killed? Didn't they blow up a couple of empty garbage cans? They had like garbage cans or empty oil drums on an empty deserted air base or something like that, to symbolically strike the U.S. and to provide an exit ramp, according to the New York Times. Iran reached out ahead of time to tell Qatar of the attack to minimize casualties. Iran coordinated the attack on American air base in Qatar with the Qatari officials and gave advance notice that attacks were coming to minimize casualties. This was after everybody started reporting about how the airspace over Qatar was eerily silent. And let's see here. The official said that Iran symbolically needed to strike back at the U.S., but at the same time carry it out in a way that allowed all sides an exit ramp, essentially all sides to save face. How does this save face? It's another thing that just makes me, if you're Iran, what is it really just that, okay, listen, are they, I don't know what the regime in Iran is like as far as popularity goes. I mean, nobody's ever 100% popular. Are they just desperate to stay in? Apparently, the people they don't want them to stay in. It's not the nuclear program that's the problem. It's the people who are supposedly running the nuclear program that people don't like. They want regime change over there. There's a reason why John Bolton is smiling through his stupid, kitchen broom mustache right now. Just some of the people who love this alone are enough not to like this. But when you say, well, listen, they're being given an opportunity to save face, shouldn't there be some kind of mystery to that? The New York Times is letting everybody know that Iran got in touch with Qatar and said, hey, can you help us blow off some fireworks so everybody sees this as a response to what? Now, I don't want them to bomb American bases. I don't want the American bases to be there, but I don't want any of this to be happening. How can you save face if everybody knows that you're essentially just lighting fireworks off in a meaningless way in the middle of the desert? That doesn't save face. It's odd. It's weirdly performative, very weirdly performative. Shit like this makes me wonder how much Iran is actually playing along. You want to talk about America and Israel and who's holding whose leash, who's wearing the choker. When shit like this happens, I'm just like, are you sure this isn't like, a three-man play here? Because that's really stupid. Really stupid. And all major media is publishing it beforehand. Can everybody show up and watch the bombs drop since we know the place, the time, and everybody's been cleared out? Can you put up a lawn chair? I just don't get it. All right. Let's see here. Barry's, are you there?
Yeah, what's up, Frank?
Who's this?
This is Herbie.
Herbie. Okay, got you. Go ahead, Herbie.
Yeah, what's up? So yeah, with the Iranian thing, we've had issues with Iran since, 1979, right?
Mm-hmm.
You had the thing with Jimmy Carter, right? And then you had, Reagan went and did, where they rescued the captives and all that. And then you had the Iraq-Iranian war, where supposedly the CIA and stuff funneled weapons to the Iraqis in order to fight the Iranians, right? And ever since the Ayatollah took control over Iran, they've always wanted to destroy Israel. They always say it all over their media, to destroy Israel. And every single president has gone on, you can look it up. Every single president or would-be president, even Hillary Clinton said, we cannot allow Iran to have nuclear weapons. He literally said verbatim almost exactly what Trump said. Every president.
Yeah, I've seen the compilations. Aside from the fact that you've been around for even a couple of election cycles, you know that everybody takes a turn saying the same thing about Iran, that they shouldn't be allowed to have a nuclear weapon. But depending on whether you're a Republican or a Democrat, you have different prescriptions as to how to prevent that, I should say. And some are more ridiculous than others. And but yeah, this always seems to be.
Look at how many strikes in foreign land that Obama authorized during his presidency.
So
look at how many airstrikes that he authorized in places like Syria, Yemen, Afghanistan, Iraq. Many strikes, right?
So what's your conclusion on this then? We know that both most people who are on the fence about this or outright don't like it will say that, hey, well, we know that Republicans and Democrats are always, saber rattling and talking very strong about so-called rogue nations like Iran, but Trump was supposed to be different. So
I think here's my opinion on the matter. So here's what happened, right? The first time Trump was in, Trump was really hard on Iran and sanctioned the shit out of Iran, right? His first term. He sanctioned Iran almost to death, right? Really tough on Iran, hit that Soleimani guy, right? And then this next term, Israel and America haven't been really on extremely good terms lately, ever since Trump went to Saudi Arabia and shook hands with the newest Syrian Al-Qaeda elected leader that's in charge of Syria now. Israel didn't really like that very much. And I don't think Israel likes the would-be deal that Trump was making with Iran. So I think Israel, knowing the future, they said, well, here's our chance to turn the tables. They said, you know what? We're going to flip the tables on them. We're not going to allow them to lift the sanctions on Iran. We're not going to allow, because I think lifting the sanctions on Iran to Israel is worse than them having a nuclear weapon.
Okay. Well, what you're talking about here is a lot of and thank you for the call. I want to take a couple more in here. What you're talking, though, is a lot of speculation as to what might be driving everybody and who has a prospective deal and who doesn't. And I would say, I don't know, especially when it comes to Israel, that's a nation that apparently cannot survive on its own. So why in any way, shape, or form are they allowed to disrupt or react negatively and pull somebody off of their negotiation or diplomacy game by just dropping bombs and getting out ahead of something and turning a diplomatic crisis into a kinetic crisis, a kinetic exchange? I mean, there's so many ways you can you can stop that shit because, all you got to do is unplug Israel. Apparently, they just cannot survive on their own. I don't understand. There's some strange. I don't understand what makes people listen to this. Where the hell is it? Where is she? Where the hell is she? Tammy Bruce. Did you hear this? I don't understand what inspires a person to even talk like this. It's really strange. Here is Trump State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce. This has been shared by one Ken Klippenstein, independent journalist who makes clips, I guess, of media. Says that America is the greatest country on earth, next to Israel. You say, oh, well, it's not that bad. I've heard worse. Oh, don't worry. It's coming. And like I said, strange. The overtures. There's just something always, extra very special about this. Listen.
The pride of being able to be here and do work that facilitates making things better for people. And in the greatest country on earth, next to Israel. It is
in the congratulatory next to Israel. like what? Like she did the Bill Cosby Jello face for some reason. What the fuck was that? What is this?
Israel.
There it is. It's the Bill Cosby Jello face. She just had to slurp it up for some reason. And now, they say State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce claims the video that Ken Klippenstein posted of her saying that America is the greatest country on earth next to Israel was out of context. So here's a longer video. Take a listen to this just within the first couple of moments of this. So I'm telling you, there's just some very strange, creepy behavior here. It's not, this is why a lot of people are asking questions for the first time, because it just doesn't seem like geopolitical, skirmishes or, neighbors butting heads or something like that, and allies are called in to mediate or whatever the hell it is. It's just strange. Listen to the people who are managing these conflicts.
Are you Jewish?
I am not, and sadly not.
Are you Jewish? I am not, and sadly not. What? What the hell are you?
I am Italian, which I've always thought maybe the Italians were the lost tribe.
Listen to this. Shut up, first of all. Okay? Now, just stop it. Now, we've got a lot of Jewish people who watch this show. Some of you are actually in Israel. I've got precious Jewish friends. I consider them precious little toys. But does this not creep you out? Does this not creep you out? If you're Jewish, if you're just a everyday person who happens to be Jewish, who goes to temple, who keeps their faith, doesn't get involved, that doesn't really, buy into the cause, and somebody speaks like this about you. I always thought that my little, we were the 12th tribe, the 13th tribe, or so. Who? This is so creepy. It's creepy. So it's one thing to say there is a nuclear non-proliferation aspect to what we're dealing with. Like there's a verified threat somewhere, even though the verified threat has been looming and has been just days away from completion for God knows how many years. So you can come at this from a nuclear non-proliferation standpoint, and I'm open to listening to what you're talking about as far as how that could be an issue that threatens all people, or certain allies, or they're creating some sort of maybe a humanitarian disaster in some kind of a way that poisons the earth itself. I don't know. How big is the weapon you're making? God knows. I actually think that all of the experiments that people are doing in these so-called facilities in Sweden and everywhere else where they're trying to create mini black holes are actually a little bit more concerning than than the splitting of the atom at this point. But still, you could talk about nuclear non-proliferation, and then you realize that as qualifiers, on top of that, there's just so many people talking this way. So many people talking this way. And I don't get it. I don't get it why they talk this way. You have Ted Cruz bringing up thumping the Bible in very confusing ways. Like, pump the brakes, Ted. Got that going on. I mean, there's always these strange added layers. Everybody's almost in competition with each other. Like, what does that mean? Are you Jewish? No, sadly, no. I wake up every morning and wish I was Jewish. What? Well, then convert. What do you want? Like, what's the issue? I don't get it. Do you get it? Does anybody else understand this? Here's a message from a friend of the show, Mike. Mike said, Frank, I am very interested in your analysis of this catastrophic melodrama, but it's probably too early to be certain about anything. It does look like T made a strategic last-minute surrender to Mossad while simultaneously appointing the odious Mark Levin as a special advisor. Special indeed. Clearly, there can be no battle against the deep state while controlled by Zionists, so it's over unless T stabs them in the back, which would be richly gratifying. Maybe he will flip again when he finds out the AIPAC group lied to him about Iran's nuclear program, which might not have even existed, according to Tulsi Gabbard. That's from my friend Mike. Let's take a call from Olga. Olga, are you there? No. She blipped away at the last second there. Hey, I'm just curious about the way this is being presented to people. I understand that there is so much that we don't know, that we will not be shown, we will not be told. I understand that. But the public relations aspect of the military-industrial complex, I mean, they have a very strange way of selling these things to us and walking us through these situations. They have a very strange way that leaves me very uneasy. I'm totally fine in not knowing what's happening. I'm totally accepting, I should say, in my not knowing. But the public relations aspect is real shit. Olga, go ahead.
My love, I'm so sorry. I was like, maybe I should call from my other number. This is Olga.
Welcome.
You were a guest on my show years ago.
Oh, yeah, Olga. How are you?
Silly girl.
Yes, absolutely. It's good to hear from you.
Oh, so great. I did not expect you to respond so quick. I'm like, you know what? Don't use that number. Use the other number.
Hey, dude, wait, hold on. Are you on speakerphone right now?
No, I'm on my headset.
Okay. All right. Well,
does it sound like speaker?
It almost does. It doesn't matter. I hear you good enough.
On. The speaker. If I put you on speaker, this is what it sounds like.
No. If you can just go straight up to the phone without anything, that'd be even better.
I'm so sorry because I was like,
you sound great now. Go ahead. Tell her.
Sure?
So, yeah. What's on your mind? I want to hear from you. Go ahead.
Oh, love you. You know I love you. Who doesn't love you? Like, really?
Oh, stop.
Not to. I mean, come on, Aries. Okay, but so you were saying, and my thought was when I was calling you on this line, I was like, wait, hold on, maybe I don't know what he's asking. So I was listening. So your question was, please refresh my memory. What do you want to hear? Because I'll tell you. The
question was what? I don't know. I didn't ask a question. Here's a question I can ask you. Then everybody else can jump on. My question here is, if there was a Persian nuclear device that was floating around out there, whatever, what does one device versus the 13,000 collectively owned nuclear warheads that surround that one freshly made device in the mountains of Iran, what does that really mean? I guess that's
good question. Great question. I think I'm going to blow your mind a little bit. So here's my thing. So number one, right? Who doesn't have the right to have nuclear plants for energy, right? right? That's one of the things that's been talked about, right? So they could easily say, oh, well, we're just making these energy plants for energy, right? Like any other nuclear plant.
Yeah.
But here's where I'm going to, and I'm doing this on purpose to ask you, because you go deep. So, okay, I have a question and an answer. So, regardless of your religious, like whether you're Christian or Catholic, it doesn't matter. Whether you're evangelist, I have a sister who's a Mormon. So you know how the Bible says that God wrote everything from the beginning to the end? Tell me what you think about that before I continue.
That everything is what are you insinuating that everything has been predestined?
It's in the Bible. It's like if anybody's going to believe the Bible, I'm not saying that's.
Well, I'm not the person that will be able to cite anything chapter and verse, so I wouldn't be able to.
Neither.
I wouldn't. So
neither.
Well, you're the one bringing it up. You have to at least be able to cite this.
I can't cite a chapter or verse, but anybody who has done Bible study, you know, I've done Bible studies. I just don't remember the exact verse. But
right.
God wrote everything from the beginning to the end, right? So the last 2 weeks, my clients call me up. They're like, hey, what do you think? Like one client, I'm like, hey, don't travel this weekend. This was literally last weekend. They were supposed to come to Philly to visit me. I'm like, I don't think this is like the worst week ever to come visit because I'm into astrology and all this stuff. But I go more and more when my friends, clients ask me, I'm going, you realize everything's been written. So while we're talking about what's happening, it's all written.
So are you not a proponent or of a free will, or to what degree do you believe we are free individuals?
A great question. You had Robert Phoenix on the show. Love him, love you. But so if anybody does astrology, which I've been reading for over 40 years, and it's like, wait a minute. So everything is written, because whenever I read somebody, it happens. And they think, oh, you're psychic. I'm like, I'm not psychic. It's in your chart. It told me you're going to get married. It told me how many kids you're going to have.
So what's going to happen with Iran?
We're at war. I don't know if that's okay to say in your show, but like it's a fact. Like it's not even a discussion. But by the 4th of July, there will be a peace. But that's, again, if you look up on the stars. Now, but if you look at like even the Bible prophecy, again, I'm not a Bible pusher person, anything.
But you're referencing it a lot.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Because I go, every time I've been doing astrology for 40 years, a lot of it coincides with some of the predictions and revelations and whatever in the Bible. And when I say by whatever, I'm just trying to make it like casual, this conversation.
Understood.
But at the end of the day, if there's a creator, like if I was a creator, I'm not, but if I was, don't you think? And you're an Aries, like if you would have created from the beginning to the end easily. Like, would you really just, shoot the dice out there and like, let's see what happens? You know what I mean? If you're the creator and you're a great father and you have a great daughter and great wife and all this stuff, but can you imagine, like, if you had to predict how it's going to happen? Not predict, create. I'm going to be married to her for 80 years. We're going to die together. Go ahead. I can feel you.
No. And I would like for you to put a nice little bow on this one because I want to hear the conclusion.
I will. The conclusion is, great. You're so good. I love you so much. The conclusion is because my own friends are like, well, okay, Olga, so everything's already written. And I've known you for 20, 30 years. Like, you've been right the whole time. Like, but I'm not right.
Okay.
All grace goes to God. I go, it's the fact that I know that it's all predicted, like all created, right? So God's like, Frank, he's going to be a talk show radio, blah, 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 have kids, this many kids, this, what, you feel me? So we're going through all that. So I go, well, so if I already know everything, like I know the future, like it's all written, and I go, well, then what do I do? Like you said, like the free choice thing. Like, oh, well, I went from having coffee to tea every morning. And then it's like, did I choose that? Did God choose that?
Oh, so what's
And
going to
if you
happen?
do this-
Okay, so Iran is. How does this have to do? Okay, so I'm just what we have. We
So
have
to
to.
answer your question, there will be war.
But there will be peace.
Everyone.
There will be war, but there also will be peace.
Yes, around the 4th of July, but it's going to get pretty and uglier after. That's my prediction.
Okay.
Not as a psychic. I am a psychic, but as an astrologer as well. That the bigger question is not what's going to happen.
Right.
It's why. Why?
Well, that's
why would it die?
Yeah. Well, why? Well, why is something, Olga, we're gonna have to get into the next time because I have to take a couple of more calls. But you've given us a lot to think about there. It's the Olga Perez show. Olga Perez show. I remember it. I had a lot of fun when I was on that show. I actually called in from the garage on a rainy day.
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did
On
because
your phone.
I couldn't because inside there was no place for me to do the call inside because the baby was napping. So it was a great day, and I hope people go check it. And you know what? Call in again because it was good to hear from you finally.
I will.
All right, thank you, Olga.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Oh yeah, well it'll happen again, I'm sure. You become a fan favorite. It's going to be war, but also peace. It's going to be ugly, but also beautiful, and all that is going to be happening over the next couple of weeks, hopefully. Olga is a riot. I don't know. We can't divert this into a. I guess we can talk about a free will situation, but I've already wondered how long has everybody been working together on this one? Is Iran a cast member in a play? I don't know. Jim from Maine, go ahead.
Hey, Frank.
How are you, Jim?
Pretty good, buddy. Pretty good. Those were awesome predictions. Way to hedge your bets. Right
I bet
there.
you any money she's going to be right on the money at some point.
That's right, man. She's going to be right somewhere along the line.
So you know what? Let me co-op your call for a second before you get around to what you were going to say, and just say the last Zell we spoke to was your brother, and that was last week or the week before. Either way, he called in and he took a stance that a lot of people were surprised by. He actually took a stance that whatever was going on in Iran was a legitimate threat, and that for at least for a change, Israel was almost like mandated to go in there and take care of business for their own survival. Now, again, we're the one that dropped the bomb, so but this is when I guess all the missiles started going back and forth, and the Iron Dome was failing because the hypersonics were coming in. But your brother took a stance that kind of surprised a lot of people. What do you think about the events of the last week or so before you get into the substance of your original phone call?
Crazy time period. Regarding Israel, like you mentioned just a few minutes ago, what if it's? Do we all agree that they had a uranium enrichment capacity of some sort?
It seems that they do. The real question is who
they do have the ability to enrich uranium.
Right.
So I think everybody agrees on that. And even if there was only one little bomb there, one nuclear bomb, compared to 13,000 surrounding them, nobody wants that one little nuclear bomb to drop in their city, right? Even if it's one, we've seen what one nuclear bomb can do.
Yes.
Right? Nobody wants that dropped anywhere. So I know Benjamin Netanyahu for years has been saying they're a threat, weeks away, months away, weeks away, months away, over and over and over for years. Now, to Iran's side of it, Iran has been speaking about Israel for years and years and years and years about wiping them off the face of the earth, destruction of Israel. So even if they were pursuing a uranium enrichment program, right, that in of itself has to be viewed, regardless of you have a bomb or not. You have to think that they are going to pursue that avenue at some point to get a bomb. Whether they have it or not is neither here nor there. That's why Israel has been sabotaging them for years. over and over and over and over.
So you
They've
think
been trying to
so
derail him.
you think that they would have?
I think they have a right to defend. Israel themselves has a right to defend itself. If they think it's a threat, they can try to neutralize it. Now, they may have took too much on and said, "Hey, by the way, you know, we can't destroy that nuclear site without your help, USA." Right? So that brings us in. You know, do I think President Trump did the right thing in the end? You know, overall, I think he did. I think he probably made the best decision that was available to him. I think it was the best decision he could make in light of all the years. This is what happens when you do regime change, right? And like a lot of people aren't really talking about it, but this goes all the way back to 1956. This is where it started. We took out Mogadishu, United States and Britain. We put in our guy, Mohammad Rezvi, right? He rules for a little while. The people then turn on him, and then the Ayatollah comes in, right? All because we got rid of a democratically elected official in Mogadishu in 1956. That started this whole chain of events, right? So regime change is a terrible thing. Now, whether Trump is trying to do that right now, I just watched a report of somebody from Iran, the Crown Prince. I don't know who that is, but he was basically saying now is the time to step, you know, for the Ayatollah. It's falling. It's, you know, the nation's falling apart around him. He needs to step down. I'm willing to rule the country. I was like, holy smokes. So whether that's the intended purpose of this was to cause regime change, to kind of shock and awe the Iranians to the point where, you know, they look impotent in front of their people, which they do, because there's nothing you can do. You know, we're bombing them from over here, and like we can basically, you know, kill their leader at any point. So I think he made the best decision he could. But this is in light of terrible policy that's not just Trump's, you know, idea. This goes back all the way to the 50s. Right. So if my people want to talk about, you know, hey, it's not constitutional to bomb another country. You know, how about bombing Kosovo with Bill Clinton?
Oh,
totally
yeah.
Unconstitutional.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you can go on and on and on. All the presidents did it. Right. Trump's no different. It's like, you know, they've been given this the executive has been allowed to usurp constitutional authority.
Yeah, but Jim, that goes back to what we were saying before. One of the first callers. I mean, yeah, we can go tit for tat with a Republican or a Democrat, a president or a senator or a first lady or what you know, a hopeful, somebody just on the campaign trail who's just trying to make an inroads into Washington D.C. There's a long history that spans decades of people saying the same things about Iran, which was just followed through on right now, or going outside of Iran, just talking about unilateral executive military action in places where there has been no war declared, and yeah, there you can put that at the feet at both parties if you want to call them you know, distinct from one another, and in all eras. So, but the real question is, there's a lot, or not the question, but the real issue right now with people is that, I mean, if this was a Bush or a Romney or you know, whatever the hell it is, another legacy president over here, people would be like, you know, more of the same. But there's a lot of people right now who thought that, you know, Trump was going to buck that trend. So I understand where people are like, shit. And then at the other hand, there's no way to really convince us that these threats that we've been told have been lingering for 30 years were actually just about to come to fruition for real this time. So there's just so much up in the air. And I think that what's most frustrating for us is, as you can see in, you know, depending on what platform you are keyed in on, there's a lot of infighting going on right now. Who's more of a purist supporter over the other, because you didn't want there to be any kind of side quests in the Middle East and North Africa with the military again. Not when we have so many problems here at home, but here we are. Some people say it's not a war. This prevented a war. Now Trump is saying this should be called the 12-day war. There's just so many fucked up.
It is all over the map. That I'm not going to lie to you, because sometimes he's saying contradictory things from day to day, right? It's not a war; it's a war. That in itself is a contradiction. If you bomb a country, it's an act of war, is it not?
Yeah.
So I mean, you can kind of call it. He can say, "We're just going after your nuclear sites. That's all we're doing."
But again,
you're still bombing a country, so it is a war.
And where's our? Even though nobody asks our permission, all we do is finance this shit by going to work and trying to provide for our families and having 4 months of our labor stolen from us every year. You would think that we would get some sort of a stockholder meeting at some point so we can see the imminent threats, because otherwise you can just say, hey, my neighbor has a gun somewhere in his house, and I believe that one day they might use it against me, so I'm going to light his house on fire, and then I'm going to pick through the ashes and find the gun. Or, it's just like, well, I mean, this is very...
I get you. I know what you're saying. I get it. I mean, slope, man. We've been going down that slope a long time.
It's pre-crime. I mean, we're talking about pre-crime in this respect.
But, speaking of pre-crime, what I find fascinating, Frank, in all of this, and since June 10th, when Israel launched the strikes first, the markets didn't react, man.
Oh, really?
I was in the process of talking to some investment firms and kind of talking about just some money I was looking to invest. And we were going to, and then he was like, "Hey, man, hold off here, because we're going to wait and see what's going to happen." And then when I talked to him, maybe a few days ago, I'm like, "Do you notice this, that the markets aren't reacting?" He goes, "Yeah." Because I do. And it's very peculiar why they're not reacting.
Now, when you
would
see,
think once Israel started bombing Iran, that the markets would have tanked and the oil would have went all the way up. That never happened. Not even close.
So when you see that, which you're right, it is.
Dude, I don't know if this was something that was, handwriting was on the wall. I'm not going to call it theatrics per se. That might be a little strong, but I find it very interesting. The markets did not plunge the way they should have.
Well, here's the other thing.
And
you want to talk about theatrics? Yeah, obviously, if you don't have maybe somebody else out there has a theory. Why would the markets not plunge when it seems like this is the title bout people have been waiting for so long? Israel and Palestine is really not a fair fight.
How come oil is not at 110? Instead, it plummeted. Oil plummeted.
Yeah, that's very strange. And these are things I would not pick up on because I'm not watching the markets or anything else like that. But that should be a telltale sign, one of those vital signs that somebody should report on. I'm glad you brought it up, but since you brought up theatrics, let me ask you about the act of Iran saving face by coordinating not only with seemingly the U.S. but Qatar and apparently the New York Times to make sure that there was a giant space of nothingness cleared out from all who might be injured by their missiles, and then to save face blew up just ordnance. I don't know, just blew up fireworks
and dropped some bombs.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, but you know what? This was talked about. That this was that it was actually said that this is exactly what they were going to do, and it's exactly what they did. They did it in 2020. Or 2021, one or the other. When Trump killed the general over there, when they launched a counter strike, but they basically gave us a heads up. So it's in the exact same playbook. Go figure. And I was listening to somebody. I forgot the guy's name. I wish I could remember it, but he said exactly what was going to happen. They were going to notify us. We were going to move personnel out. And then they were going to launch to save face, and it's exactly what they did. I don't know why. Now, I know saving face is big in the Middle East. I know having to do something is a very big thing.
Oh, yeah.
There.
Yeah.
But why it's like the same pattern they do over and over, and it seems like it's some type of playbook.
I understand. And you know what? I don't even think it takes somebody. It can take just a lay person at this point to be able to predict that, in this case, Iran but that they were going to have to do something theatrical or performative to just not look like a beaten bitch. But again, the issue here is, why do that at all if every step of the way, I mean, people are just tracking and publishing how you're making an appointment to bomb an empty strip of land. You're making an appointment, and you're telling everybody, including the so-called aggressor who warranted this response, to clear out of the way, so we can blow up a couple of empty oil drums on an airstrip somewhere. Why do it?
Seems kind of absurd, right?
It's very absurd.
Yeah, I'm not gonna, I don't know what to say about that, but it did happen in 2020.
Yeah. Anyway,
same thing. But one thing on free will, Frank, that was brought up with the last call, and I'll just get off. Does God know whether I'm going to buy a Ford or a Chevy? Yes, He is going to know what I'm going to choose. Do I have free will to choose it? Of course, I can do a Ford or a Chevy, but God knows what I'm going to pick.
Yeah.
But here's the thing where I can't. This is where I do not have free will, and this is where no human has free will. The Bible talks about that nobody can come to God unless God convicts the heart through the Holy Spirit and regenerates the heart. Jesus said nobody comes to the Father unless the Father draws them. And the word draw in the Greek means drag. Mankind does not want God. God is the one who initiates. He sent his son. He's the one that convicts the heart and changes the heart from a heart of stone to the heart of flesh, that you're able to see Christ. That is where we do not have free will to just come to God on our own choosing, because humankind can't, because it says we were dead in our trespasses and sins, but He's alive together in Christ Jesus. And I'll leave it there. Well, thank you for giving me a platform there, Frank.
I'm glad that you contributed in that way to those comments. I'm sure that Olga is very happy that you tacked onto that as well. And thank you just for the general contributions for the phone call. And I'll talk to you soon, I hope.
Yeah, I hope all is well with you, Frank, and your family.
Same to you guys up there. Be good, okay?
Hey, thanks, bud.
All right, take care. Yeah, I guess we can end on this. Well, actually, there's a couple of questions that came in. I got to announce a winner of these issues, of these prizes. Who's this? From Stevie Z. I got this. What the hell was that? I got this during the break. No, I went out and I actually got an answer to this during the break. I got this last night. This super chat on quitefranklysuperchat.com. Yes, you can do that overnight. If you are not listening live, you can leave a super chat for the next day. Frank, this is from Stevie. If you were the president of the United States, acting in your diplomatic capacity, and your itinerary for your overseas trip was being put together for you, and you were asked to go to the Wailing Wall, would you go if they asked you? Well, I mean, this was pretty easy for me. If I was the president of the United States and they said, hey, well, here's your itinerary, and there's going to be like some kind of an event or something like that. It's going to be at the site of the Wailing Wall. If it was being hosted, it was a necessity. Like that. I mean, I don't see why I wouldn't go. I'm not wearing the hat, and I'm certainly not kissing anything. I don't mind. But what it did make me want to see, I went and I looked into sacred sites that were closest to the wall, places that I would probably glad hand a little bit and then go somewhere that I really wanted to see for myself, even though, there is historical importance to that Western Wall. But do you know that approximately 0.4 miles away from the Western Wall is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre? I did not know that. So I would walk less than half a mile. That's the site of the crucifixion, the burial, the resurrection. Also, 0.6 miles away No, 0.7 miles away is the Garden of Gethsemane at the foot of the Mount of Olives, at the Olive Garden, the first Olive Garden. So I would go to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre first, and then I would go to the Olive Garden. But yeah, no, I have no problem. If I were the president and there was some kind of an event at the Western Wall, I would go and check it out. But I'm not wearing a hat and I'm not kissing anything. That's just simple for me. What else do we have here? Some other stuff. I have thoughts on free will that we can get into that kind of tie everything together, but I don't have time for that because we have our book club in about 7 minutes and can't open up a can of worms this late in the game. But listen, it's going to be a good one tomorrow. We've got Brendan Dilley coming on, and I know what stance he's going to take on everything, so it'll be good to just get a little bit of Iran out on the table, but also ask about how he sees everything else. And you know what you can do? Go to speakpipe.com/quite frankly. The link is in the description below, and leave voicemails. You can leave a voicemail, ask questions that you want to contribute to the show, ask questions that you want, maybe to have posed to Dilley, or just a statement you want to make. I can, whatever. It could be, that's another way of just contributing to an open lines kind of a night. Use the voicemail box. It's been really great, especially for all the culture clubs that we're about to do right now. There's 1 or 2 voicemails that was left for our book club tonight. And what one was this? Hold on. Something just came in from my friend John. And he said, Frank, take a listen to this. Trust me. And what is it? Oh, I've seen it. I saw this yesterday. I saw this yesterday. It's actually kind of funny. Awful announcing. A very painful 31 seconds of silence after Chip Carey accidentally says a slur while reading a disability pride promo. It was during a baseball game. I saw this yesterday or the day before. It's obviously been getting around. Let's listen to this.
Disability Pride Night.
Okay, so it's the St. Louis Cardinals. Disability Pride Night. First of all, why would you do that? Why would you do that? A Disability Pride Night? Or is it pride? Like gay pride? Wait, are you gay and disabled? Like, we're talking like Governor Cuomo pride? I don't get that. I understand if you have a disability or something like that, you deal with it, you work with it, you strengthen other parts of your life, and you get past it. You assimilate. And I understand, but I don't know anybody. I'm proud of my disability. Who's proud of your disability? You deal with it, right? You work through it, and you improve. I don't know. People are just so weird. Got to create things that come out to the baseball game tonight.
Disability Pride Night is Thursday, July 10th, and with a theme ticket, fans take home a Cardinals cap featuring the Disability Pride flag and Cardinals in Braille.
I know, I've heard this yesterday, so I knew it was coming. Sonny Gray is pitching. How old is he now, Sonny Gray? So July 10th, you can go get your Disability Pride flag on the hat.
Take home a Cardinals cap featuring the Disability Pride flag and Cardinals in Braille.
Flag.
Details at cardinals.com/theme.
So he just stays quiet for a while. Listen, that's just a mistake. That's just an unfortunate mistake. He uttered a slur. Oh, come on. It was just a mistake. It's funny. I like when people mess up like that. I think it's funny when they mess up like that. I think that voice cracks are funny too. Every once in a while, my voice will crack, and I'll think it's hilarious. But me, Anthony, we always just wait for people's voice to crack. That's the funniest thing. It ruins everything. Ruins the seriousness of any situation when somebody's voice just, oh. The puberty never ends. All right, that's it for tonight. I thank you all so much. Thank you so much to Scott Schara. Over on our, let's see here. I have Nicole says, prayers to Scott and his family. Jay Britt says, Grace's story is heartbreaking and also infuriating. God bless Scott. Everyone should strive to have his level of faith. Thank you for keeping us as updated on this saga, Frank. It's great to have you guys contribute in this way. Let's see. And there you go. Thank you to Jay Semo. And to Nat Wall and Redneck Lady. Let me make sure that I get all of our gold pillars in here. The Sentinel. Sentinel just said, if Iran is still Babylon, who is the whore of Babylon in Revelations? What country is the fifth empire in Nebuchadnezzar's dream in Daniel 2? I don't know, but I am thinking a lot about that. Let me get the Sentinel. We only have a few people in this giveaway. Okay, you ready? Let's see. So the odds are great for you guys tonight. Let's see. The first winner is Gino with the 1-year-old. Okay, Gino's getting the hat and getting a fire pit, chemical bomb, and some used bubblegum cigarettes. Who is our second? Gino, reach out to me. I need anybody who wins. You hear your name, you got to reach out to me with your address. You have to. Because you're just a name, not an email address. I don't have those things committed to memory. Be proactive. Because if I don't hear from you after a week, I have to recycle the prizes. I can't go hunt you down. Gino, get in touch with me. There's the first one. The second one is Shotzi. Shotzi wins the second chemical disaster bomb, as well as some. I'll put something else in there, some stickers. I'll give you guys some stickers, and we still have a couple of, quite frankly, wooden coins. We'll send it to you. So, yeah, thank you so much, Shotzi and Gino. Reach out. You guys have won. Thank you so much for supporting the show tonight. Thank you to all of our callers. Thank you to Scott Schara for his time. And I'll see you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. It's going to be good. All right. Have a good one. Nighty-night.
I'll catch you on the flip.
Challenges, and also conquer and complete all of our goals. A lot of goals. And it only takes a little bit of the audience to come in at, I don't know, $5 a month, whatever suits you. Go and check it out. quitefrankly.tv/sponsor. And you get a whole bunch of members-only content, as well as, I don't know, special times like tonight. Let's get into book club. Good night.
Everybody else shit. Fuck. Everybody else shit. Fuck. Everybody else shit. Fuck. Everybody else shit. Fuck.